The rooftop bar hums with conversation and laughter, but he doesn't hear any of it anymore because his attention locked onto her the second she moved past his table, and now he can't look away, even though he knows he should. The city stretches out behind her in a wash of golden light and distant towers, but all he sees is the curve of her silhouette against the skyline, the way her dress moves when she shifts her weight, the confidence in every small gesture she makes. She's been standing near the railing for the last few minutes, glass in hand, seemingly unaware of his stare, but then something changes. Her head tilts slightly and she glances over her shoulder with a slow deliberateness that tells him she's known the entire time. Her lips curve into a smile that makes his chest tighten, and instead of looking away like most people would, she turns fully and starts walking straight toward him. The noise of the crowd seems to drop away as she closes the distance, her eyes never leaving his, and he realizes too late that he has no idea what to say or how to explain why he's been watching her like a man who forgot how to be subtle. She reaches his table and doesn't stop, doesn't ask permission, just leans down so her face is close to his, close enough that he can feel the warmth radiating from her skin and catch the scent of her perfume wrapping around him like something deliberately chosen to make him lose his train of thought. Her breath brushes his ear when she speaks, voice low and smooth and dripping with playful accusation. Stop looking like you've never seen them before. The words hit him like a shock of cold water, and heat floods his face instantly because she's calling him out in the most confident, teasing way possible, and he has absolutely no defense. She straightens slowly, tilting her head and raising one eyebrow as she watches him struggle to form a response, clearly enjoying every second of his flustered silence. Around them, heads begin to turn. Other guests notice the moment unfolding, the way she's standing over him with that knowing smile, the way he's completely frozen under her attention. The energy between them crackles, visible to everyone watching, and she doesn't seem bothered by the audience at all. If anything, she leans into it, letting the tension build while he tries to remember how to breathe. Before we continue, please like this video, subscribe, and let me know where you are watching from. 20 minutes before she leaned down to whisper in his ear, she stepped onto the rooftop alone, moving through the glass doors with the kind of ease that suggested she didn't need anyone to make her entrance matter. He was already there, drink in hand, standing with a small group from work and only half listening to their conversation about quarterly projections when she appeared in his line of sight. The first thing he noticed was the way her dress caught the glow of the string lights overhead, fabrics shifting with each step. And then the way she smiled at the host near the entrance without any trace of nervousness or hesitation. She belonged here, or at least she moved like someone who belonged anywhere she chose to be. His attention followed her as she accepted a glass of wine from a passing server and thanked him with a quick flash of warmth that seemed genuine rather than polite. She didn't scan the crowd looking for familiar faces or check her phone to fill the space like most people did when they arrived somewhere alone. Instead, she just moved forward, weaving between clusters of guests with her head up and her expression open, and something about that confidence made it impossible for him to look away. His colleague said something that required a response, so he nodded and offered a vague agreement while his eyes tracked her path across the rooftop. She must have felt his stare because she glanced in his direction, just a quick sweep of her gaze that landed on him for half a second before moving on. But in that brief moment, their eyes met and something clicked into place. He tried to look casual after that, turning back to his group and pretending to focus on the discussion, but his awareness of her never faded. A minute passed, maybe two, before he allowed himself another glance. She was near the railing now,
leaning forward slightly to set her glass down on the ledge, and the movement drew his attention in a way that felt both intentional and effortless. When she straightened, she brushed a strand of hair back from her shoulder with her fingertips, slow and deliberate, and he wondered if she knew exactly what she was doing. The answer came when she looked back over her shoulder directly at him, holding his gaze longer this time. Her lips curved into the faintest smile before she turned away, and his pulse kicked up in response because that look told him everything he needed to know. She was aware of his attention, and she didn't mind it. In fact, she seemed to be inviting it, testing to see what he would do with the knowledge that she'd caught him staring. He cleared his throat and took a sip of his drink, trying to reset his focus, but it was useless. Every few moments, his eyes drifted back to her, drawn by some invisible thread he couldn't seem to cut. She had positioned herself perfectly, standing where the railing curved so that anyone at his table would have a clear view of her silhouette against the skyline. It couldn't have been accidental, not with the way she seemed so at ease in that exact spot, not with the way she occasionally shifted her weight or adjusted her stance in ways that kept drawing his attention back. At one point, she reached for her glass and brought it to her lips without drinking, just holding it there while she gazed out at the city. And the simple elegance of the gesture made his chest feel tight. He was being ridiculous. He knew that, staring at a stranger like a teenager who'd never learned how to be subtle, but he couldn't stop himself. Around them, the party continued. Conversations rose and fell, laughter punctuated the music, drifting from the speakers, and servers moved through the crowd with trays of appetizers. Few people near him started to notice where his attention kept going, exchanging knowing glances and low comments he pretended not to hear. One of his coworkers leaned in with a grin and asked if he planned to actually talk to her or just keep watching from across the rooftop. And the question landed like a challenge, even though it was meant as a joke.
Before he could answer, she looked back again, and this time she didn't look away. She held his gaze openly, fully, with an expression that was equal parts amusement and invitation, and he felt the full weight of her attention settle over him like something physical. His friend said something else, but the words didn't register because she was moving now, not away from him, but toward him, closing the distance between them with confident steps that told him she'd made her decision. The people around him noticed too, conversations faltering as heads turned to follow her path, and he realized with a jolt that everyone was about to witness whatever happened next. She reached his table without breaking stride, without hesitating, and instead of stopping at a polite distance, she kept coming until she was leaning down close enough for him to catch the scent of her perfume and feel the warmth of her breath near his ear. That was when she spoke, voice low and teasing, delivering the line that turned his face red and made his carefully maintained composure crumble completely. If you're enjoying this moment, like and subscribe and drop a comment to tell me your favorite part so far. She doesn't walk away after delivering that opening line, which somehow makes the whole moment even more intense because now he has to figure out what comes next. While she's still standing there, watching him with that knowing expression, instead of leaving him to recover, she pulls out the chair across from him and sits down, uninvited, but so completely welcome that he can't even pretend to be surprised. The small table suddenly feels much smaller, and he's acutely aware of how close she is now, close enough that he can see the amusement dancing in her eyes while she settles into the seat and leans forward, propping her chin on her hand like she's prepared to stay a while. He opens his mouth to say something clever, something that might restore a bit of his composure after she completely dismantled it with that whisper. But before he can get the words out, she tilts her head and speaks first. You were doing it all night. You know, every time I moved, your eyes followed. Her tone carries that same playful challenge, And just like that, any hope he had of recovering control dissolves completely. His face heats again, and she watches the reaction with obvious satisfaction, her smile widening just enough to let him know she's enjoying every second of his discomfort. He manages to find his voice finally, something about how it's hard not to notice someone who moves the way she does. And for a moment, he thinks maybe he's found his footing in this conversation. She listens, her expression thoughtful, but then she shifts forward in her chair, and the movement closes the distance between them even more. And whatever point he was trying to make evaporates from his mind. She reaches across the table without asking, wrapping her fingers around his glass and lifting it to her lips for a
Slow sip while maintaining eye contact the entire time. Her fingers brush against his as she sets the glass back down, and the brief contact sends a jolt through him that's completely disproportionate to how innocent the gesture should be.
not bad, she says, referring to his drink, though the way she's looking at him suggests she might be talking about something else entirely. He tries to read her expression, tries to figure out if she's being deliberately provocative or if he's just reading too much into everything because she's completely scrambled his ability to think clearly. The crowd around them continues their conversations and laughter, but it all feels distant now, like background noise that doesn't matter compared to what's happening at this table. Still, he's aware that people are watching, that some of the guests nearby have noticed this interaction and are tracking it with curious glances, and that awareness adds a layer of electricity to every word and gesture. She leans back slightly, studying him with her head tilted, and then challenges him to guess what she does for work. He considers her carefully, taking in the confidence and the way she carries herself, and offers a guess that makes her laugh outright. The sound is warm and genuine, and something in his chest responds to it, making him want to hear it again, to say or do whatever it takes to earn that reaction. She shakes her head, telling him he's completely wrong, but not offering any hints. And when he tries again, she just laughs harder and refuses to confirm or deny anything. You're enjoying this too much, he says, and there's no accusation in his voice, just a statement of fact. Maybe, she admits without a trace of apology. And then she reaches forward again, this time letting her fingertips trace along the rim of his glass in a slow circle. Her eyes stay locked on his while she does it, and the simple movement suddenly feels charged with meaning he can't quite name. She pauses, her finger hovering just above the glass, and the silence stretches between them for several heartbeats before she finally speaks again. Or maybe you're enjoying it too and you just don't want to admit it yet. The observation lands with perfect accuracy, and he realizes she's right. Somewhere in the last few minutes, his embarrassment shifted into something else, something that feels more like exhilaration than discomfort. He leans forward, closing the space between them until their faces are only inches apart, near enough that he can see the flecks of color in her eyes and feel the warmth radiating from her skin. He opens his mouth to respond, words forming on his tongue that might actually match her energy for once, but before he can speak, a waiter appears beside their table, asking if they need anything. The interruption shatters the moment like glass breaking, and they both lean back automatically, the spell broken by the sudden intrusion of the outside world. He orders another drink, mostly to have something to say, and she requests water with a polite smile that's nothing like the expression she was wearing seconds ago. The waiter nods and disappears into the crowd, and when they turn back to each other, something has
Shifted. They're closer than they were before somehow, as if the brief interruption only intensified whatever was building between them rather than diffusing it. She rests her hand on the table between them, palm down, fingers spread slightly, and he notices the gesture without quite understanding it until she speaks. You know what I think? Her voice is quieter now, low enough that he has to stay close to hear her over the music. I think you appreciate beautiful things when you see them. Nothing wrong with that. The words hover in the air between them, sounding bold enough to make his pulse quicken. But then she adds with a slight shrug, I'm the same way. Actually, I see something I like. I don't pretend I don't notice.
The clarification is innocent enough that he can't quite call her out on the innuendo, but the look in her eyes tells him she knows exactly what she's doing. He's starting to understand the game now, the way she pushes right up to the edge of something daring before pulling back with charm that makes him question whether he imagined the suggestion in the first place. Instead of retreating this time, he matches her move, reaching out to let his hand rest near hers on the table, not quite touching, but close enough that the space between them feels deliberate. So you've been noticing me too, he says, and it's not a question. Her smile deepens, transforming into something that looks genuinely pleased rather than just teasing. Obviously, why do you think I came over here? She places her other hand on top of his briefly, just long enough for him to register the warmth and softness of her touch before pulling back and tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. Most people would have looked away by now. You didn't. I wanted to know why. He holds her gaze, no longer trying to hide his interest or play it cool, and offers a response that finally feels like it matches the moment because looking away felt impossible. Her eyes light up at that, and the smile that spreads across her face is different from all the others, wider and more genuine, like he finally said something that surprised her in a good way. She laughs softly, shaking her head in what looks like approval, and the sound makes something warm settle in his chest. Around them, and the party continues, but neither of them is paying attention anymore. Like this, if you feel the tension, subscribe and tell me what you do in this moment. The energy between them has been building for the last several minutes, all playfulness and charged looks and teasing comments, but then someone across the rooftop opens the garden door and cool air drifts through the opening, carrying with it a quieter energy that seems to shift something in the atmosphere. She notices it immediately, her attention pulling away from him for just a moment to glance toward that open doorway where string lights glow softly beyond the threshold and the noise of the party dims to something more distant. When she looks back at him, her expression has changed into something less performative, more genuine, and the invitation in her eyes feels different than all the ones that came before it. She stands without saying anything, and he follows her lead naturally, rising from his chair and walking beside her as she moves toward that quieter space. They pass through the doorway together, leaving the crowd behind, and the shift is immediate. Out here, the music becomes a muted backdrop. Conversations fade to a low hum, and the tension that was wound so tight between them at the table begins to soften into something warmer. The garden stretches along the edge of the building, smaller than the main rooftop area, but somehow more intimate, with
Plants in large pots, creating natural alcoves and string lights, casting everything in a gentle golden glow.
She walks to the railing and stops there, resting her hands on the cool metal and looking out at the cityscape spread below them. The skyline glitters with 1,000 lights, buildings rising into the night sky, and for the first time since she approached him, she's still, not moving or teasing or performing. He comes to stand beside her, close enough that their arms nearly touch, but leaving just enough space that she doesn't feel crowded. And when she doesn't pull away or turn to make another playful comment, he knows that something has shifted between them in a way that matters. The silence stretches out, but it doesn't feel uncomfortable anymore. Earlier, every pause between words felt loaded with meaning and anticipation, but this quiet feels different, like they're both catching their breath after running too fast. She takes a slow inhale of the cool night air, her shoulders relaxing slightly, and he finds himself doing the same, the tension in his chest easing for the first time since she walked over to his table. I don't usually do this, she says after a while, her voice softer than it's been all night. She keeps her eyes on the city below rather than looking at him, and the admission feels real in a way that all her earlier confidence didn't. Approaching someone like that, I mean, being so forward. She pauses, her fingers tapping lightly against the railing, and then she turns her head just enough to meet his eyes. But you kept looking at me like I was the only person up here, and I couldn't figure out if you were going to do anything about it or just keep staring all night. The vulnerability in her words catches him off guard because she's been so completely in control since the moment she sat down across from him. But now he's seeing something underneath all that confidence. He shifts his weight slightly, angling his body more toward hers, and speaks with more honesty than he intended. You completely threw me off the second you walked over. I've never had anyone call me out like that, especially not in front of half the party. He shakes his head with a small smile. And I've definitely never met anyone who moves through the world the way you do, like you know exactly what you want, and you're not afraid to go after it. She looks at him fully now, and the expression on her face is softer than any she's worn tonight, her teasing mask slipping away to reveal something more real. Is that what you think? That I always know what I want? There's a hint of surprise in her voice, maybe even a touch of uncertainty, and it makes her feel more human somehow, less like the untouchable force she seemed to be when she was leaning across his table with that knowing smile. You seem like you do, he says quietly. She considers that for a moment, then lets out a soft breath that might be a laugh or just an acknowledgement. Sometimes I do. Tonight I did. Her hand is still resting on the railing between them, and after a brief hesitation, he
Reaches over and covers it with his own, the touch gentle rather than bold. She doesn't pull away, just turns her palm up so their fingers can intertwine naturally, and the warmth of her skin against his feels grounding in a way that all the earlier electricity didn't.
They stand like that for a while, hands joined on the railing, shoulders brushing as they look out at the city together. The space between them closes gradually, not with urgency, but with a natural drift that feels inevitable. And when she leans slightly into his side, he responds by shifting closer. Her head tilts toward his shoulder, not quite resting there, but near enough that he can smell her perfume again. Softer now, without the deliberate intensity it carried when she first leaned down to whisper in his ear. This is nice, she murmurs, so quietly he almost doesn't catch it. He glances down at her, at the way the string lights catch in her hair and soften her features, and something in his chest tightens in a way that has nothing to do with attraction and everything to do with connection. Yeah, it is. She looks up at him, her expression open and warm, and when she smiles, it's different from all her earlier smiles. This one is smaller, more private, meant only for him in this moment, and it feels more valuable than all the teasing grins that came before it. They don't need to fill the silence with more words, don't need to keep pushing or testing each other. Out here, away from the watching eyes and the performance of it all, they can just be two people who found something unexpected on a random night, and that feels like enough. If you've ever felt this kind of connection, tap, like, and share your favorite moment below. They stand together in the quiet garden space for several minutes, hands intertwined on the railing, the city lights spreading out before them like a blanket of scattered stars, and the comfortable silence between them feels like something rare and worth protecting. She's leaned into his side slightly, her warmth seeping through the fabric of his shirt, and every breath she takes seems to sync with his own until he can't tell where his awareness of himself ends and his awareness of her begins. The party continues behind them, muted and distant, but out here they exist in their own world, separate from all the noise and performance that brought them together in the first place. He turns after a while, shifting his body so he's facing her instead of the skyline, and something about the movement pulls her attention back to him. She mirrors the turn naturally, releasing the railing and angling herself toward him so they're standing face to face with only a breath of space between them. The string lights overhead cast a soft glow across her features, catching in her eyes and making them seem even more luminous. And for a moment, he just looks at her, really looks at her, taking in every detail he can memorize. The confidence she wore so easily all night is still there, but underneath it now, he can see something more vulnerable, more open, and that glimpse of her unguarded self makes his chest feel tight with an emotion he can't quite name.
"You're the most captivating person I have ever met," he says, and the words come out quieter than he intended, but no less true. He doesn't overthink it or try to dress it up with cleverness, just offers her the simple honesty of what he's feeling, and the vulnerability of that admission hangs in the air between them like something fragile and important. She doesn't deflect the way he half expects her to, doesn't turn it into a joke or offer some teasing response that would let them both retreat to safer ground. Instead, she just looks at him with an expression that's completely unguarded, tender in a way that makes his breath catch, and he realizes that she's letting him see her fully now without any of the playful armor she wore earlier. "I wasn't expecting you," she says softly, and there's something in her voice that suggests she means more than just tonight, more than just this rooftop. "I came here thinking it would be another boring event. And then I saw the way you looked at me and everything changed. The admission feels like a gift, something precious she's choosing to share, and he finds himself stepping closer without consciously deciding to move. The space between them shrinks to almost nothing, close enough now that he can feel the warmth radiating from her body and see the way her breathing has quickened slightly. Her eyes search his face, looking for something, and whatever she finds there must satisfy her because she takes the final step that closes the distance completely, bringing them so close that if either of them moved even an inch, their bodies would be touching. His heart is racing now, pounding so hard he's certain she must be able to hear it. And for several long seconds, they just stand there in that charged space, neither of them quite willing to be the first to cross the final line. He can see the flutter of her pulse at the base of her throat, can feel the warmth of her breath mixing with his own, and the anticipation of what comes next feels almost unbearable in its intensity. Part of him wants to rush forward, to close the gap and claim the moment before it can slip away. But another part wants to live in this suspended instant forever, in the space where anything is still possible and nothing has been risked yet. She tilts her face up slightly, her lips parting just enough that he knows without a doubt what she's offering. And still, he hesitates, not because he doesn't want this. He wants it more than he's wanted anything in longer than he can remember, but because he needs to give her the chance to change her mind, to step back if she's having second thoughts. He lets the moment stretch, watching her carefully, searching her expression for any sign of uncertainty. Instead of pulling away, she reaches up with one hand and lets her fingers brush against his jaw. The touch feather light but deliberate, and that small gesture is all the permission he needs. He closes the distance between them slowly, giving her every opportunity to stop this if she wants to, but she doesn't move away. She stays exactly where she is, her eyes drifting closed as the space between them disappears completely. And when his lips finally meet hers, it feels like something inevitable, like the only possible conclusion to everything that's been building between them since the moment she walked over to his table. The kiss is gentle at first, tentative and exploratory, both of them learning the shape and rhythm of each other. Her hand slides from his jaw to the back of his neck, fingers threading into his hair, and the touch sends warmth cascading through him that has nothing to do with physical heat and everything to do with the emotion behind it. He brings his hand up to cup her cheek, his thumb brushing along her cheekbone in a gesture that feels protective and tender, and she makes a small sound against his mouth that might be contentment or surprise or relief. Time seems to slow down and speed up simultaneously. The kiss deepens gradually, becoming less tentative and more sure as they find their rhythm together. But it never crosses the line into urgency or demand. There's passion in it, absolutely, but there's also something softer, something that feels more like recognition than simple attraction. When they finally pull back, neither of them moves far, staying close enough that their foreheads rest together and their breathing mingles in the small space between them. His hand is still cradling her cheek, and he can feel the warmth of her skin beneath his palm, the slight tremor that runs through her that mirrors the one moving through his own body. She brings her hand up to rest flat against his chest, right over his heart, where she can probably feel how hard it's beating. And the simple intimacy of that touch feels more meaningful than anything that came before it. They breathe together for several long moments, neither of them speaking, just existing in this space they've created where nothing else matters except the two of them. When she finally pulls back enough to look at him, there's a smile playing at the corners of her mouth that's completely different from any expression she's worn tonight. It's softer, more genuine, touched with a kind of wonder that makes her look younger and more vulnerable than she did when she was commanding the entire rooftop with her confidence. So, she says, her voice barely above a whisper, are you going to keep looking at me like you've never seen me before, or have you gotten it out of your system now? The callback to her opening line catches him off guard, and he lets out a surprised laugh that breaks whatever remaining tension was still hanging between them. She grins at his reaction, clearly pleased with herself, but the teasing has a different quality now, warmer and more affectionate than challenging. He shakes his head slowly, his thumb still tracing gentle patterns against her cheek, and speaks with complete honesty. I don't think I'm ever going to stop looking at you like that. Her smile widens into something brilliant and unguarded, and she laughs softly, the sound wrapping around him like a physical thing. Good, she murmurs, leaning back into him so her forehead touches his again, because I'm not done with you yet. The words settle over him with a weight that feels like promise rather than pressure, and he realizes that everything has shifted between them in a way that can't be undone. They're not strangers playing games anymore, not two people testing each other to see who would break first. Somewhere between her bold approach at his table and this quiet moment in the garden, they became something more, something that feels substantial and real and worth exploring beyond tonight. The electric tension that crackled between them earlier has transformed into a different kind of warmth, something steadier and more sustainable. And as they stand there, wrapped up in each other with the city glowing behind them, he knows that this is just the beginning of whatever they're becoming together. Eventually, they have to leave the quiet sanctuary of the garden, though neither of them suggests it with words. They just seem to know when the moment has run its natural course and it's time to return to the world they temporarily left behind. She takes his hand as they walk back toward the main rooftop area, threading her fingers through his with an ease that feels both casual and significant, like it's something they've done 100 times before, even though this is the first. The simple gesture sends warmth spreading through his chest, and he squeezes her hand gently in response, amazed at how natural it feels to be connected to someone he met less than an hour ago. When they step back through the doorway into the noise and energy of the party, everything is exactly as they left it. Conversations continue, glasses clink, music drifts through the speakers, people laugh and move around each other in the familiar dance of social events. But something fundamental has changed for him, for both of them, and the party feels different now, even though nothing about it has actually shifted. They exist in their own space somehow, a bubble of intimacy that persists, even surrounded by dozens of other people, and he's acutely aware of her presence beside him in a way that makes everyone else seem slightly out of focus. They weave through the crowd together, still holding hands, and he notices the looks they're getting from guests who watched the whole thing unfold earlier. His colleague from work catches his eye and grins widely, giving him a subtle thumbs up that would normally make him feel self conscious. But right now, he can't bring himself to care about the attention. She notices the exchange and glances up at him with amusement dancing in her eyes, leaning close enough that her shoulder presses against his arm. Everyone's still watching, you know, she murmurs, her voice carrying that familiar teasing lilt, even though it's softer now, warmer. You made quite the spectacle earlier, going red in the face like that. Instead of feeling embarrassed this time, he just pulls her closer, wrapping his arm around her waist in a gesture that feels both protective and possessive in the best possible way. You're the one who made it a spectacle, he counters, but there's no accusation in his words, just affection and maybe a hint of awe that she chose him out of everyone here. She laughs and fits herself against his side like she belongs there, and for a few minutes they just stand together, comfortable in their shared space while the party moves around them. Eventually, she mentions that she should probably go soon, early morning tomorrow, and a long drive home, and the words land with a heaviness he didn't expect, even though he knew this moment would come. He nods, understanding, but before she can pull away, he reaches for his phone and offers it to her with a silent question. She takes it without hesitation, her fingers flying across the screen as she enters.
Her number and sends herself a text so she'll have his information too. And when she hands it back, their fingers brush in a way that sends familiar electricity up his arm.
Don't wait too long to use that, she says, and there's something serious underneath the playful instruction, a promise that this matters, that tonight was more than just a fun flirtation at a random event. I won't, he assures her, and he means it completely. She steps closer one more time, rising up slightly on her toes to press a kiss to his cheek, and the gesture is slow and deliberate, her lips lingering against his skin long enough that he feels the warmth of it settle deep in his bones. When she pulls back just enough to whisper in his ear, her breath sends shivers down his spine. Next time, you can be the one to approach me first. Let's see if you're brave enough. The words are delivered with enough playful challenge that he can't help but grin, already imagining when and where that next time might happen. She steps away then, her hand slipping from his with a reluctance that mirrors his own, and starts making her way toward the exit. He stays where he is, watching her move through the crowd with that same confidence she carried when she first arrived, but now there's something different in her bearing, something lighter. Just before she reaches the doorway, she glances back over her shoulder, catching his eye across the distance, and the look she gives him is the same one that started everything hours ago, full of promise and invitation and unspoken understanding. Then she's gone, disappearing through the exit and leaving him standing there with a smile he can't seem to shake, no matter how hard he tries. His phone buzzes in his pocket less than 10 minutes later, and when he pulls it out, there's a text from an unknown number that's now saved in his contacts. Still thinking about you, it reads, followed by a second message. This was fun. Let's do it again soon. He types back immediately, his grin widening as his thumbs move across the screen, already counting down the hours until he can see her again. The party continues around him, but he's barely aware of it anymore, too busy replaying every moment of the evening and marveling at how completely his night changed the second she decided to walk over and call him out for staring. Tonight started with a whispered challenge and ended with a promise, and he knows without question that this is only the beginning of whatever they're building together. Like this video, subscribe and let me know, would you have the confidence to walk up to someone like that, or would you wait for them to come to you? I'd really appreciate it if you could share your thoughts about my videos in the comments. Your feedback helps me improve and create even better content for you. Thank you.